Good evening and hello from Warsaw. We're coming to you live at the 2025 Chopin Piano Competition. My name is Richard-Hamelin KUDO. We are in the middle of the third round and we've heard 11 of our 20 pianists so far, and we will be taking a short but hopefully fun intermission break. I am so excited to be joined by two wonderful, extraordinary pianists and laureates of the competition from 10 years ago, 2015. We have Richard-Hamelin and Kate Yu, our second and third prize winner from 2015, not to mention the Sonata Prize and the Best Mazurka Prize. Thank you both so much for being with us and sharing your thoughts and experiences since the competition 10 years ago. Has it been a long time, short time? I'm sure your life perhaps really changed drastically since this event.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it's of course the most important, I guess, musical event that's happened in my life so far. It really helped me gain a career and a following, and just being able to give concerts around the world. And I never had the opportunity to do that before the competition. So for me, it was a huge change.
And Charles?
Yeah, the same. There was really like a big, it was a career and life defining moment for all of us, really. And there were finalists, and yeah, I'm being back here after 10 years, and it's my first time experiencing the competition again from the other side. And I have to say, yeah, I just have this feeling of gratitude that I've been through this. I cannot really believe I've been through this, 10 years ago. And I have just so much respect and admiration for all the pianists who are participating this year. Just so much admiration, because it's people don't really realize what it takes, to do this event. We do. We've been through it. So, and yeah, it's just unbelievable to see the level now, and yeah, just feel so very happy to be back and be part of the competition in a way. Yeah.
What do you remember the most from that time, very special time?
I would say perhaps the third stage for me was at 10 in the morning, and that's when I played the B minor sonata, I guess at 10:40 in the morning, which is not a great time to play a piece like that for me. But I remember
I think it was, because you
well,
did
I guess
very
it went well, I guess. Yeah. But I was really worried I wouldn't sleep the day before. I was very nervous the whole month, and I remember going to bed at maybe 9 because I wanted to wake up very early to warm up and so on. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to sleep, at 9 p.m. And somehow I slept super well and woke up at 6:30, like I wanted to, and I was rested, and like I took this as a sign that things would be fine. So it's one of my memories for sure. Yeah. How about you?
For me, it would be, I think, probably before the final, almost right before the final. I was young, and I was kind of inexperienced with the whole, I think, competition thing, and I remember not having prepared my concerto as well as I could have, and there was a rehearsal the day of, and then the concert was at night, and I just remember being completely dreadful in terms of emotions, and just really not looking forward to having to perform the concerto. And I remember the orchestra was wonderful, and the conductor was wonderful, and they were really supportive, and in taking some of my tempi, and I had asked for certain tempi, and everything sort of very luckily came together at the end. But I just remember being so completely hopeless right before the final.
Because of the orchestra, the concerto experience.
The concerto is so difficult technically, and I'm sort of never. I don't consider myself sort of very technically
oriented,
secure, or in that sort of direction, and so it was very daunting to have to play the first movement, the third movement with all of those passage work. And so, I was just dreading my own solo work. What I was given was great.
And Charlie, you played the F minor concerto.
Yeah, I was the only one that year,
Yes.
actually, that ended up in the finals with the F minor, which I think that was also a blessing for me. I never played this piece with an orchestra before, so that was my first time at the competition. And since then, like yourself, I've played it a bunch. So that was, by then I think I was just so happy to be there and so grateful. And that concerto, somehow I was less nervous than previous stages. Thank God, maybe I didn't consider everything that could go wrong, but somehow it went very well. But that stage at the competition, also I was feeling really good with the piano that I had that year, the Yamaha CFX that I played on, and I felt that its lightness and easiness to play this kind of music, early, very, very virtuosic, lighter works by Chopin, really helped me carry through the whole thing. And yeah, I'm just I have great memories of also the release at the very end of the very last note. Like I got here in Warsaw, I got to play every note I prepared, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Little did I think that there would be 3 prize winner concerts after that.
Yeah.
with cameras everywhere, and then I was not done at all actually.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I felt a great release.
Yeah. So, in the last years, I'm sure that Chopin has been a central part of your repertoire, but not only, of course. But how would you say your relationship with his music has changed, evolved? I'm sure you've played the same piece back then, but now, do your interpretations change? Ideas change? What kind of process has that been?
I think, I think as your life changes and sort of your experiences sort of shape certain things that you do. And I think in Chopin and basically every composer, just the music that sort of comes out of you changes a lot, especially since it's been 10 years. And within this 10 years, really just so much has happened. And so, I would say that in terms of my relationship with Chopin, of course, when I was younger, it was just quite innocent in some way, and even a little naive, and trying certain things out, and very much mirroring sort of how my mentality and sort of age and everything. And of course, now 10 years later, it's definitely shifted. Just, I think, in the way I hear the harmony and how my intentions and my goals with how I want each passage to sound. I think just the specific details have really changed in that way, and I think music is all about the specific details. So as a whole, it's just sort of, I think, much different than it used to be. I think certain qualities that I have as a personality, as a temperament, those have not changed, and those will never change. But years added on to life will alter things
Inevitably,
in ways,
And do you feel the same?
Yes, and about that, I like this example. If you go on YouTube, you can find Piotrkiewicz play the Schumann concerto, and in every decade of her life, almost from the age of 13 in Argentina, in the 50s, up to maybe 2 years ago. So there's dozens of versions of her playing the same piece over a span of 70-something years, and it's always excellent, and it's always different, and it's talk about someone who aged wonderfully well, as a pianist. So that's an example I like to bring out. But as for Chopin, for myself, it's this prize and the fact that I got to play so much of his music in the last 10 years all over the world, and having also the demand of learning new pieces by Chopin every year. It's allowed me to develop a very strong relationship with his music. There are not that many works that I haven't played now, so of course I feel very privileged to, when I learn a new piece by Chopin or I go back to an old piece, it's like seeing an old friend, or discovering something new about someone you know very well. There's a shorthand that's developed, because you know the language, how he thinks, how he feels music, and anyway, you think you do. Of course, that's all assumptions. But I do feel like a sense of homecoming whenever I play Chopin.
You mentioned new repertoire. whether Chopin or not. Maybe I can ask both of you on your process for this, learning new pieces. How do you approach Chopin in a different way than, for example, other composers, or is it like analysis? Do you think about the sound more, emotions? Is there some kind of idea for you?
For me, I think there's not really too much of a difference between
composers.
I think my approach with Chopin and other composers. I think it's sort of my approach to music in general, and of course, with each composer, they have their personalities, and so as you're going through the piece or thinking about it or just feeling the different sound worlds or emotional worlds, then you pick up on different things and then you work on different details. In terms of Chopin, a lot of it has to do with just, a lot of singing lines and enjoying those and loving those. And of course, I love taking time, so I have certain places where I do enjoy those. But yeah, overall, it really is specific to the composer. But I think my approach, which tends to be more emotional, that is the same, I think, through all the composers.
Sure.
One quote by Chopin that I love is, and I will butcher it, but it's something like, after having played thousands of notes, the real goal is simplicity. The real reward is simplicity. And this, I often go back to that, when you work on such complex music, especially his later music. It's always the attempt to go at the heart and the core of the music, the message, and to try to integrate all those details into one coherent story and narration. And so this is always the main, I think, the main thing in my work when I interpret anything, really, to find logic in it, and then forget about it and play with my heart on stage. Yeah.
One new thing in this competition is that the Polonaise-Fantasy is a requirement, but in the finals. And both of you happen to have already incorporated that piece in your repertoire for the 2015 competition, even though that wasn't required. So I think that both of you have a certain love and inclination for it. What do you think about the new rules for this year, that it's obligatory for the finals?
I can go for it. Yeah. I think it's great. It's such a bold decision, really, to incorporate solo music in the finals, and especially this piece, which is an enigma in a way. It's one of the more elusive, profound works by Chopin. I believe it was actually you had to play it in 2015, but in a different stage, right? I think it was 2010,
yes.
not our year. Yeah.
Semifinals.
But now in the finals, and in a way, it kind of shows the complete artist, maybe, because it's what is required in the early concertos that Chopin wrote in his, barely 20 years old, and what he wrote at the end of his life requires something extremely different from the pianist and the artist. And I have to say, there's very few people who can be on the ultimate level doing both, And I think that's perhaps the big challenge now this year. The jury wants to find someone who can do both at a very high level, which takes, I think, a high degree of technical skills, but maturity and there's some pieces that you can just play, that you can play, and they can work and be very impressive, but you really have to think your way through what you're going to do with the Polonaise-Fantasy. It's you cannot just wing it, You have to really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, everything he said, the Polonaise-Fantasy is just such a late, mature work. Its whole emotional world is completely different, I think, from anything else that he wrote. It's quite a standalone in many ways, just how it's structured and just emotionally as well. And to play it, you really have to have a certain amount of experience, I think, with Chopin's work, and it's just to get into it is such a challenge, and to know that you can perform it under pressure, and then with a certain amount of your own interpretation, it's just a very difficult work to all in all sort of perform. And so I think it's wonderful that they put it in this year's competition, because I certainly love the piece very, very much. It's one of my favorite pieces by Chopin. And yeah, I will certainly enjoy listening to some of the renditions, I think, this year.
Yes, yes. I think it was Rubinstein who said it's as if Chopin is dreaming through the piano, but I think that, like you said, it's such a fine balance between this atmospheric and structure and of course the Polonaise, the fantasy, fantasy and the Polonaise, vice versa. Let's talk about some of your recordings, if we can. Charles, you've, I think, released a dozen, you said.
Yes,
A recording since the 2015.
Right, all in my home country of Canada on the Analecta label. Yes, I've been quite lucky to have a very busy recording career following the competition, and got to do projects that are very precious to me, especially recording both concertos with the Montreal Symphony Orchestra and Kent Nagano, Chopin concertos, and also did 2 Mozart concerto CDs as well, with Les Violons du Roi, it's a great ensemble from Quebec City. So yes, shortly after the competition, it was, I asked myself if I wanted perhaps to move to Europe because of course the sudden attention that I had. But I'm very glad that I decided to remain in my home, Montreal, and be very active there. I still come here from time to time and in Asia and everything, but I feel very, very close to my home country.
And I mean, these days travel is, it's okay.
It's
it's
okay too,
manageable. Yeah.
But
you were just performing in Poland.
Yes, I was there.
Yeah.
I was there this weekend, and I figure why not stay a few more days and be part of the festivities here.
Yeah.
But no, it's very blessed to have had this opportunity and to keep doing it. And to also do a lot of Chopin. The ballades, the preludes.
What haven't you played?
Well,
What's next on your list?
Well, the etudes, but I would say that someone here is doing a fine job at that, in Kevin Chen, so I don't think I'm going to touch those.
I don't know. I think we'd all appreciate another recording of etudes. I'd be okay with that. And Kate, you just came out with your first album, not Chopin, and it's Beethoven and Brahms, Opus 110 and the Third Sonata. Could you tell us about that? I mean, what two different composers?
Yeah, well, those 2 composers they're composers and pieces that I felt very, very close to for a very long time. I mean, with the Beethoven 110, I had learned it, I think, years ago in my first year of college, but I had always wanted to learn it, I had always wanted to keep it, and it's one of my favorite sonatas by Beethoven. And it continues to be, and of course, it's just a beautiful, beautiful work, emotionally, sound world and everything. And then with Brahms Sonata No. 3, again, another work that I had wanted to play for quite some time, and Brahms I feel very close to. His Third Sonata is such a gigantic work. It's so monumental. And I had played it as well, and I just sort of wanted to have a stamp of a recording to sort of put down an interpretation at the moment, I think, of how I played it. And with these 2 pieces, with recordings, you imagine that you will play them differently in 10, 20 years, and I think these 2 pieces, they're very close to me, and I would love to sort of compare, and maybe in years, sort of how I play it later.
And I imagine the recording process is quite different from a live concert.
Oh yeah, I mean, the preparation for it is very different, and the process of editing and yeah.
Is there one that you prefer?
Well, I think what I did with the Chopin concertos was actually the best of both worlds, because they were, as you probably guess and know, it's very expensive to record with the symphony orchestra. So it was done during 3 live performances where I've played both concertos at each concert, plus a little session where we could fix some things that I never was happy with. So you get this energy of the live experience, but without the mistakes of the live experience. So I think that's a great way to go if you can manage it, to do a live concert. But with some time to fix things later on in post. Yeah.
Okay, what about you? Did you enjoy the studio experience?
It's definitely much different than live. And I know there are differing opinions as to which artists prefer. I personally do love the studio. I sort of love the intimate space. Of course, it's not completely intimate because there are all sorts of microphones around you and everything, but the editing can be very extensive, but the thing is, you know, you can listen back to yourself, you can sort of make changes, and there are other people helping you with the process, and, you know, for me, there's a brilliant technician that's sort of working on the piano as I'm doing it, and it really amazes me and gives a lot of inspiration, even in the moment. So the whole process, I think, I love. Almost sitting back and playing whatever you want without having to really fret too much about audiences.
Yeah.
And you know, the fact that you would have to deliver on the spot. So yeah, I personally love it.
So like Glenn Gould, you know why he...
I understand.
You understand why he liked the studio so much. We just have a minute left, but what is in the future for both of you? Anything exciting? Projects you're looking forward to, or maybe something that you'd like to do eventually?
Sure. Next year I'm going back to Japan twice, and that's one of the great things that the Chopin competition offered me, in a way, this presence in Japan. We with Kate, along with all the prize winners, we had a wonderful tour following the competition, and since then I've been back many times by myself. And the other thing, I have a tour in Canada in 7 cities with my namesake, the great Marc-André Hamelin, and we're playing a 2 Hamelin concert. We're not related, so I think I want to use this forum to make this clear. We're not related, but I'm a huge fan. He's a legend, of course, and we get to do this 2-piano series of concerts together, and it's a lot of fun. So if anyone's listening from Canada, I hope they come to one of our concerts.
Yes, or even if they're not in Canada,
you make the trip.
they can come over. And Kate, what about you?
I mean, I sort of have concerts here and there, but I think I'm looking forward to making a next recording.
Could you tell us what that would be?
I actually,
No.
I don't have exactly what's going to be on it, but I am in the works of sort of thinking through pieces, and I'm not exactly sure when it's going to release, but yeah, I'm sort of looking forward to doing something like that in the near future. Okay. So that's, yeah.
All right, so we'll be glued to you and waiting for that next recording. Kate and Charles, thank you so much for spending your time with us, chatting. It's been such a pleasure, and I hope that the audience online has also been enjoying this conversation, and we will return to the music to continue the semifinal round of the 2025 Chopin Piano Competition.